Do 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 do. Hello. A lot of people think time is a thing. Human beings, of course, we're always cognizant of time. Like, I'm getting old, or how long we wait for stuff. So, just like fish, we swim in a sea of time. And so, what we've done, irrationally and unintelligently, and due to lack of wisdom, which most human beings suffer very greatly thereof, is that we've reified time. Reification, just like a shadow. We reify shadows. We think they're something, and of course they're nothing. They're merely an absence of light. Time, of course, has no place within the cosmos. It is only a measure. We're only cognizant of it because we suffer due to it. And of course, the ancient phrase, both from the Greeks and the Indians, ever present, and it's something everybody should consider, is that when this is present, that is present. This time is only a measure of magnitudes. Time does not exist. Importantly so, time both is and can be polarized, and it can also be skipped over, kind of like you skip a stone across the water. It, will actually hop. So it'll make very little contact with the water. And of course, we could actually define this anyway. Of course, Mother Nature doesn't care how we define it. It's called electrokinematic effect. Yeah. These are neat books, by the way. This is actually my second copy. My first copy fell apart, and I kept having to tape it over and over again. Everybody should actually buy this book. It's Dr. Oleg D. Jefimenko. It's Causality, Electromagnetic Induction, and Gravitation. Also, if you want to know about the metaphysics, whoops, almost dropped the book, metaphysics of time, both from the perspective of the Greeks, the Indians, and the Assyrians, and the Egyptians. An incredible book. You can probably find a used copy of it for $5. It's been reprinted 100 times since the 1940s. I think it was first came out. It's called Time and Eternity by Dr. Anandakitish Kumaraswamy, or Dr. A.K. Kumaraswamy, Coomaraswamy. You can find a cheap copy. Everybody should read that book and shut the hell up. Everybody. By the way, it would also take an hour-long video, literally, to talk about this subject, but all ancient cultures, including the innate Fibonacci sequence, have also declared that time is the number 4. We actually have monad, mind, magnitude, matter, and man. I just simply put man in there because it also starts with an M. Of course, it would be ontos, the monad, the agathon. Mind, or nous, would be the eoristos dia specifically. Magnitude, topos, place. Matter, or hyal, and of course being, or ontos. In the Fibonacci sequence, the first 5 numbers of the Fibonacci sequence, there's one number significantly missing. And by the way, like I said, all ancient cultures, monistic metaphysics, intelligent people like Aristotle, Pythagoras, Plato, Plotinus, Numenius, Syrianus, people way smarter than you and me, have all said the same thing, that time was the number 4. And the only number missing in the first 5 digits of the Fibonacci sequence, actually it's missing throughout the entirety of the Fibonacci sequence, is the number for time. Let's go off the Fibonacci sequence, the first 5 numbers. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. Let's do that again. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. First 5 numbers. The only number missing is the number 4. Time is not a thing. Time is exactly like a shadow. Time, of course, is a measure of magnitudes. And, of course, magnitude is due to only magnetism. And by the way, and this was my discovery, I very am proud of this, and, of course, I'll never be famous for this at all. We've known now for, and I have to say this because someone will attack me, is that we've known that for decades. Like, no, not this part you didn't. We've known for decades, however, that whether they can see in color or not, that birds navigated via magnetism. It's like we knew that. We knew that we could actually, the experiments were done on birds where they'd actually put the magnetic fields near their heads, and they'd send off homing pigeons, and they'd get all confused, they'll lose their way. Birds navigate via magnetism. But we didn't know how. And of course, no animal out there, even with their cryptochromes, and humans have cryptochromes. And you can look that up, by the way. Look up cryptochromes. It's not like some sort of weird nonsense. It's called cryptochromes. This is the reason why I'm very careful when I experiment over top of this gigantic monster magnet on the floor, this $1,000 monster magnet. It'll actually keep you awake for 2 days because the actual huge divergent magnetic field will keep you awake. Anyway, we know that birds navigate via magnetism, but it's not directly, it's indirectly. They actually see, whether they can see in color or not, they'll actually see the phase shift between the North Pole and the South Pole. By the way, the Earth's magnetic South Pole is in the geographic north, and the Earth's magnetic north pole is in the geographic south. It also is too, and of course there's 1,000 variables like genetics, environment, and poverty that affect human life, right? There's 1,000 variables that determine how long someone lives, but it's a proven fact that people live longer on the northern hemisphere than they do on the southern hemisphere if we eliminate all those hundreds of other variables that affect lifespan: genetics, biology, environment, poverty, hospitals. You eliminate, and then there's a lot of factors there. But that's a fact. This phase disparity is actually seen underneath the supercell too if you just use white light. You can also see it, and I've done this before, people are like, well, you're just looking at the LEDs. Like, no, I mean, I've made a magnetic viewer just using sunlight, where it directs the sunlight into the edges of the supercell. You can actually see it as a phase disparity. You'll actually see a phase, and when I look at using white light or even color lights at a magnet underneath the supercell, I can actually tell which side is the North Pole and which side is the South Pole, because there'll actually be rarefactions and compressions. It's like, well, that's the South Pole right over there. In other words, these animals, the birds in particular, literally see a cast. Doesn't matter if it's in grayscale or in color, but they navigate via magnetism, not directly, but indirectly. So yes, time is polarized. And this also, by the way, is the reason behind, it's called The Magnetic Blueprint of Life. It's a book by Rawls and Davis, and the other one is called Magnetic Currents of Life. I've got both these books, and I forgot the title of the second one. Anyway, they did countless experiments on worms and chickens and animals and a lot of seed experiments, and I've got lots of videos showing seed experimentation. Okay? How it radically affects plant growth, specifically seed sprouts. I mean, radically. I even had someone contact me last week because I didn't believe you and I did the experiment myself, and oh my God, you're so right. It's like, why doesn't everybody talk about this? This is huge stuff. I swear to God, there's not been a single effing TV show or documentary or anything on YouTube where people are saying, if you actually used a polarized mass, i.e. a magnet, and you do seed experiment exposure, you get radically different results. Why the hell is nobody talking about that? You can literally make tomatoes more acidic or less acidic. Anyway, this video is about time and polarity. But the reason for that is that the mass that is the magnet is, of course, polarized. And the mass is polarized. And by polarized mass, you end up with polarized time. So if you want to look at it in a kind of abstract fashion, what you're actually doing is you're doing time dilation or time constriction on seeds or plants while they're growing. The way these magnetic currents of specific polarity affect the seed growth in the animals and the worms. One of the most famous experiments, and I'm going to get some mealworms to test this. I've done lots and lots of seed experiments, is they discovered this fact when they put a magnet next to a styrofoam cup that was full of like dirt and there was some worms inside. And it was the North Pole was facing the worms, and the worms freaked out, kind of like someone was playing loud death metal. They chewed their way out of the styrofoam cup and they plopped out the other side and died. And like, oh damn, this is interesting. And they did it again, exact same results, and they turned it to the South Pole. So instead of being irate, the worms are like dancing and eating and all happy, and they were really happy. By polarizing the mass, and most people ignorantly can't tell you what the hell a magnet is. Like, what's a magnet? Well, it's got two fields, it's got a North Pole here and a South. It's like, no, what defines a magnet? Because what has changed is nothing to do with the quantity or the entity itself. It is a change in quality. In other words, it's changed in polarity. You actually have the entire thing operating as a single point source of the magnetic field instead of being completely incoherent. But coherency versus incoherency is merely a posterior attribute. And this, of course, is no different than talking about 5-watt laser versus a 5-watt light bulb. 5 watts is 5 watts, right? Well, 5-watt laser being point source light, also coherent light, but coherency doesn't define the laser. What defines a laser is that it's a point source emission. We actually have polarization. Getting back to the topic of magnetism, the actual mass is polarized. And since the mass is polarized, time itself is polarized. Like I said, scientists call this electrokinematic effect. It's also called electromagnetic retardation when used in reference to other interactions. By the way, everybody should buy this book, if I didn't tell you this already, which I know I already did. I'll show you the book while I'm actually talking about it. This is seed exposure. We actually have a polarized mass. You're polarizing time, as I said. Like I said, and also, too, my discovery is that we knew birds navigated via magnetism, but how? Well, it's not directly. They can't see the magnetic fields. No creature can see a magnetic field. What they're operating on is the effect of the polarized magnetic field upon the light itself. When you actually look at a magnet underneath the supercell, you'll actually see a rarefaction compression. It is rarefied on the North Pole and compressed on the South Pole at a rate of 1 to 5, which, by the way, that is the golden ratio. Huh? When you actually say golden ratio, people think they know what the golden ratio is, and nobody has any idea what the golden ratio is. They'll say, well, what's the golden ratio? It's like, well, that's the symmetry of beauty and spirals, and it's the Fibonacci. No, that's a description. That's not an explanation. What is the golden ratio? What's the ratio or proportionality of one to itself? It's the extrinsic manifestation of the one in reflection in greater growing detail that is in coherence with and proportional to itself. A ratio is, of course, a proportionality of one thing to another. The golden ratio is a proportionality of one to itself. Yeah, this is the reason why the Fibonacci sequence goes 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. Anyway, that would take several videos to explain that. But anyway, in speeding things up, of course, we actually undergo time dilation. Going faster. And of course, we call this electrokinematic effect. It doesn't really say anything. I mean, that's a great scientific explanation, and it's empirically accurate, but what is actually going on? I'm interested only not in accurate descriptions, and this is what idiot scientists always want to argue with me about. So, what, does the math work? It's like, I'm not interested in the accuracy of the math. I know it works, but the math doesn't explain anything. I actually want to know what the hell's going on. For example, there's like a thousand parallels. Like if you speed up your boat, you'll actually glide across the water faster. If you have a bunch of speed bumps in a row, if you go really fast, and this has been proven, I think, on Mythbusters, you'll actually barely feel the speed bumps because you'll float over top of them. And it's a fact that the faster you travel, the more time dilates. Time is polarized. I mean, everything is ultimately dielectric and magnetic, but when we talk about time doesn't exist. It is only a measure. And since time is only a measure of magnitudes, and therefore it's only a measure, the measure is relevant to mass. But mass is only extant because of magnetism. Let's get this correct here. Use retroduction to work backwards and define time. Time is only a measure of magnitudes. Magnitudes is only a definition of a mass. And a mass is only the definition of the manifestation of a divergent centrifugal magnetic field, i.e. the creation of mass and magnitude. This is where, when this is present, that is present. Time is manifestation of the manifestation of mass. We say mass and magnitude is a distinction. This is the point at which I'm thinking about 10 things at once, and the 10 things at once actually drop into a knot in my brain, and I have to work backwards from the knot. I was trying to think actually of a perfect analogy for time. There's a lot of them, like, if you take a super sharp knife and you cut through something slowly, you'll create a lot of friction and drag, which is what we normally conventionally consider normal time. If we cut through something extremely quickly with the exact same super sharp knife, there'll be almost no disturbance. The same is true of time. We're actually able to undergo more time by speeding up. Calling that electrokinematic effect, while accurate, doesn't actually correctly define what's going on. But in essence, of course, speed, the faster you go, decreases time. You're actually undergoing time dilation. Does this mean time travel is possible? Forward, so yes. You can never set foot in the same waters twice. You can't actually go back in time that way. You could only dilate time and experience less time. If you're actually able to go super, super fast, obviously you will age really slowly. You're dilating the time around you, which is only the measure of magnitudes. But time is polarized. And this is the reason why the seed experiments and animal experiments work. I've done those experiments over and over and over again on YouTube. I've shown you how to do it, and people that have duplicated it say, yeah, oh my God, this crap works. Oh my God. Rawls and Davis did countless experiments on chickens and worms and all sorts of things. It's time dilation. because you actually have a polarized mass. Normal mass, just like the Earth or the Moon or anything, is not polarized. Of course, we actually have the Earth's magnetic magnetosphere, of course, but the mass itself is not polarized. It is very, very so weakly, but it is not like a super polarized. I mean, you know, the dirt and the normal stuff that's making up 99% of the Earth is not polarized. The only thing we're talking about being polarized is the Earth's magnetic core and the magnetosphere actually around the Earth. So we don't actually experience polarized time. If we did, then like people would rapidly age in the southern hemisphere and rapidly live long lives. I mean, excuse me, they would live long, much, much longer lives in the northern hemisphere. But yeah, time can be polarized. This does mean time travel is possible, but it gives no credence or possibility for reverse time travel, because you can't set foot in the waters, the same waters twice. The old parable of standing in a flowing stream, you can never set foot in the same waters twice, which of course is true of time. But time is only this measure. Time actually does not exist at all. But for the conventionality of us pathetic human beings who are made of mass and magnitude, we of course experience time. But time ultimately does not exist at all. It is not like an entity in the sock drawer of Mother Nature. Mother Nature does not have a sock drawer or underwear drawer. What would matter be? Matter would be the thongs. And time does not exist in the sock drawer of cosmic mechanics. It just does not. Time, of course, is necessary both for life and the measure of life, and of course, ether torsion necessitates temporal torsion. This is the only way an AC generator works, by the way. Anyway, I wanted this to make a short video. Was this a short video? I might have actually flapped my lips a bit too long here. I wanted this to be a short video, but a lot of people have asked me recently about time, but time does not exist. Conventionally it exists, but ultimately time absolutely does not exist whatsoever. If you'd like me to talk a lot deeper on this topic, just let me know. By the way, everybody should buy this book, as I've already told you. You can get it on Amazon. I think I'm holding it up long enough so someone can actually see it. This is my second copy. My first copy I still have. It's like stitched together with lots and lots of clear tape because it's fallen the hell apart. Thank you so much for watching. Большое вам спасибо за сын Russia. И увидимся. Hasta luego. Catch you later, as they say out in California. And thank you so much. Goodbye.